All right, Shalom. First and foremost, call halal yamla, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Hakwadash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone, from whom I learned this truth from. And also peace and salutation to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. And pretty much in this video, I'm going to be responding to this article. This is from, as you see here on the screen, and this is from the Newsbreak app. And the source of this article, as you see at the top of the screen, is from Third World News. And the title of the article says, America, the patient on life support. You know, you pretty much see the imagery that's on the screen. The picture that's on the screen, showing you some of the the major issues throughout Babylon the Great America. All right, and as it goes into, it says, look closely at this image. It is not just art, it is a warning. Okay, it says more guns than people, a political system stuck in an endless boxing match, a $30 trillion national debt chaining the country to the hospital bed, and Lady Liberty herself, head in hand, watching the American eagle fade. Okay, and these things just outline, just a handful of issues that's all across America, Babylon the Great. But for the most part, it speaks to, some of the major issues that's going on in this country. As I said, more guns than people. Okay, more guns than people. All right, and you best believe that's not by coincidence or by accident. Okay, it's ultimately of Yahweh Shema Shai that there's more guns that exist in Babylon the Great America than citizens. Okay, and it's all for the purpose of what? Civil war, civil unrest. Okay, Egyptian against Egyptian that it speaks of in Isaiah 19. All right, a kingdom divided leading to civil war, as Yahweh Shai spoke of in Matthew the 12th chapter. A kingdom divided. Okay, and then as well, it also speaks to, or rather, it's also going to ultimately fulfill, Second Ezra the 15th chapter. Okay, Second Ezra 15 and verse 14, it says, woe to them, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and every one shall stand up and fight against another with swords in their hands. See that? Swords in their hands. And what is this verse ultimately speaking of? Civil war, civil unrest, all hell breaking loose, all out anarchy. Okay, that with swords in their hands, as I said, and of course, what is the modern day sword? The gun, the firearm. Pistols, semi-automatic rifles, long rifles, assault rifles. Okay, things like that. Okay, so it's no coincidence that there's more guns circulating throughout America, Babylon the Great, than people. Okay, because it's all for the purpose of end time prophecy being fulfilled. Okay, civil war, civil unrest, the love of many waxing cold, as Yahweh Shai spoke of in Matthew 24. Okay, and as we just read of right here in 2 Ezra 15 verse 15 again, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. Okay, civil war, civil unrest. All right, and as it speaks of course, in verse 16, for there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. Speaking about what? The people ultimately, taking into the streets and, taking up arms against their own government. Okay, against this, their president, their governors, their senators, their political leaders. Okay, taking to the streets of their state capital, and then of course the nation's capital, Washington D.C. All right, and being a sedition against their own leadership. Okay, so not only are people going to be taking up arms against each other here in Babylon the Great, but they're also going to be taking up arms, as we just read in prophecy, against their own government, against their own president. See that? Civil war, civil unrest, all out anarchy. Okay. Matter of fact, I'll just continue reading on. Verse 17, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. Okay, and why is that? Because, when all hell breaks loose, it's going to lead to what? Lockdowns. Okay, cities being locked down, checkpoints. Okay, not being able to freely travel from one city to another or one state to another. Okay, without being authorized, without having to go through certain checkpoints. You see that? Biometric scannings, and then ultimately what? The charagma. You're gonna need the charagma, the MOTB, to eventually go from one city to another or one state to another. Okay, because that's what Esau ultimately aims for in his NWO system, to stick the charagma inside of everybody and set up his NWO system governed by AI and technocrats and all these things to establish left hand order out of the chaos that's getting ready to break out in the society, especially here in Babylon the Great America. It says verse 18, for because of their pride the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword. Okay, the gun, pistols, semi-automatics, rifles, assault rifles, shotguns, you name it. Okay, and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. See that? Lack of food, famine, food shortage, all these things, along with all the political division, all these things is what's going to cause these people, these average American people, especially these average Edomites in America. Okay, all these things all combined together is what is all going to cause these people to eventually just snap. All right, and take up the sword and take it to the streets. All right. So as it goes back into the article again, it says more guns than people. All right, a political system stuck in an endless boxing match. The two horns like a lamb. All right. And of course, Revelation 13 and 11 speaks to that. These two political parties, the Democrat Republican Party, in this this endless show of them going toe to toe against each other. The left going against the right going against the left. And you notice as of lately, especially ever since the this guy Captain Kirk C. Kirk got offed, you notice there's been a major push from the right, the Republicans against the left, the Democrats. Okay, now you got Trump along with guys by the likes of Stephen Miller and Pete Hegseth. Okay, pretty much getting ready to crack down and wage war against who they deem as the left. Who they deem as the enemies of America. The enemy within. The enemies of so-called American Christian values and all these things. Okay, you got the whole Antifa situation popping back up again. All right, and we know ultimately, Esau is pushing all these narratives because ultimately he wants to make war against Jake. Jake is going to be lumped in with the whole left, woke Antifa, agenda. Because remember, even BLM, Black Lives Matter, okay, is associated with the left and Antifa and and things like that. And Antifa was deemed a terrorist group. Okay, so the fact that you got groups like BLM, Black Lives Matter, Esau gonna link groups like that together. He is ultimately gonna do what? Use these narratives to form a roundabout way to label Jake as the new face of terrorism, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, and ultimately label, the men of the Lord, okay, us the hopeful elect, the remnant, as the number one face of terrorism, and accuse us and make us an offender for a word, okay, and persecute the men of the Lord, all because what? All because we speak the truth and have this testimony against Esau, Edom, and his beast system, and his image, and his mark, and his whole entire NWO agenda. See that? But as it went into that article again, says more guns than people, a political system stuck in an endless boxing match. Okay, and that speaks to Revelation 13 verse 11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. It's talking about America, Babylon the Great. And he had two horns like a lamb. Okay, the two horns representing what? The Democrat and Republican political parties. Okay, like a lamb. A lamb in the scriptures spiritually is symbolic of a savior. Just like Yahushua is likened to a lamb in the scriptures. John, the first chapter, where John the Baptist called Yahushua the Lamb of the Most High God. All right, as well as First Peter, the first chapter, where Peter, said that Yahushua is a lamb without blemish. Okay, well, guess what? Esau, Edom, for generations have been pushing this whole Democrat Republican system as a form of savior in the eyes of the American people. Making it seem as if one party is against the other. One party is better than the other. One party is for the best interests of the American people over the other. One party is all for making America great again and making the middle class great again and bringing back jobs and bringing back stability to the economy. Okay, but it's all one big act. Okay, it's all one big endless boxing match, as that article said. They constantly present themselves as if they're striving against each other. You got these political heads and these particular political figures that you see constantly on TV every day. Your Republicans, Trump, Vance, okay, your this guy Ron DeSantis down there in Florida, okay, against who? People like AOC, okay, Hakeem Jeffries out there in I believe New Jersey. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. Okay, Ted Cruz is another one. Okay, I believe he's a Republican. They have all these these political talking heads constantly on TV, every day, every night, put before your face. Okay, making it seem as if they're all against each other and they're all divided up. Okay, they can never agree with each other. One is trying to one up the other, but it's all leading up to, as this whole two horns, the Democrat and Republican Party, is stirring up more and more political division in America these latter days. It's all going to lead to, as it continues to say, and he spake as a dragon. Okay, draconian laws, draconian measures. All right, because Esau is clearly orchestrating, all this political division to be more fuel for the civil war and the civil unrest that we read of in Second Ezra, the 15th chapter. Okay, Esau is clearly using this whole left-right paradigm. Okay, liberal versus conservative, Republican versus Democrat paradigm. Okay, as one big psyop over the minds of the people, as Babylon the Great is diminishing more and more right before their eyes. Okay, here it is. You got these two opposing, so-called opposing political parties. All right, showing themselves as if they're they're against each other, and that one party is for the American people. All right, and the other party is not. And meanwhile, you have many people in Babylon the Great America caught up in this whole paradigm. Okay, rooting for Trump or Biden or Obama or Kamala Harris. Okay, rooting for Democrat or Republican. Meanwhile, okay, the average person is still suffering financially. Struggling to pay their rent, struggling to buy food to take care of their families, struggling to pay their car notes, struggling in all kinds of debt. Student loan debt, credit card debt, this debt, that debt, okay? Still struggling to make ends meet in Babylon the Great, with all the inflation and the cost of living going up. But yet people are still caught up in this whole left-right paradigm, okay? Really and truly believing that one party is better than the other, and that one party is for the best interests of the people over the other. Okay, two horns like a lamb. These two political parties being presented as a form of savior or messiah for the people, but it's all going to lead to, this system speaking as a dragon, draconian laws, draconian measures. And as of lately, we've been hearing, and seeing a lot of, draconian speech, from the guys, from guys by the likes of course, Trump, the cruel Lord, himself. All right. but as well, dragging speech from guys by the likes of Stephen Miller. When you listen to his speech at the memorial of Captain Kirk, okay, as of lately, we've been seeing a lot of dragging speech by the mouth of this guy, Pete Hegseth, okay, where he pretty much gathered all of the top generals of the U.S. military out there in Virginia, and pretty much told them that they need to get in shape. Okay, no more beards and no more women in the military and things like that. But he also spoke about how pretty much, he's going to use the military to wage war on American citizens, to wage war on American streets. Okay, to wage war against who he deemed the enemy within. Okay, and ultimately we know in code that this is all speech, okay, being aimed towards Jake, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, especially us, the hopeful elect, the men of the Lord. See that? So this endless boxing match between the Republicans and Democrats and this whole left-wing, right-wing paradigm, okay, is all leading to draconian laws and draconian measures. And it's all, again, speaking to how Babylon the Great America is on life support. It's pretty much through. You see that? So it says, more guns than people, a political system stuck in an endless boxing match, a $30 trillion national debt chaining the country to the hospital bed. Okay, and that's also in prophecy as well. Okay, Habakkuk the 2nd chapter, that thick clay. Habakkuk 2 and I'll start at verse 4. It says, behold, his soul which is lifted up in him is not upright. All right, talking about Esau. Okay, Esau's soul. Esau's soul, especially mainly the elites of Esau, Edom, the top banking families, though their soul is lifted up in them, all right, at an all-time high, as they're deceived by their pride. Their pride has deceived them. With all their pseudoscience and their technology, they really and truly believe that what they've been blessed with on the left-hand side is adequate enough to establish the NWO system on the earth, to enslave all humanity through technology and a microchip. And as well, they really and truly believe that they've been blessed with on the left-hand side enough to actually physically fight against Yahushua and the holy angels. See that? So Esau's soul's lifted up in him at an all-time high. His pride, the pride of his heart has deceived him. Okay? And as it said, is not upright in him. Okay? But the just shall live by his faith. And as we see Esau Edom losing his mind more and more, okay, every day, especially as of 2025, hey, we the hopeful elect, we know and understand, and we're preparing our minds and our spirits every day to to be completely detached from the system and to have to lean upon faith on Yahweh Shema Shai to endure to the end. Okay? It says, verse 5, yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, all right, his doctrines, his philosophies, okay, his propaganda, his false narratives, his pseudoscience, right? That's what the wine represents. It says, he is a proud man, okay, the pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, all right, destruction, okay, and is as death. See that? Esau Edom is as death. Okay, everywhere Esau goes, death follows. Okay, confusion, division, destruction of the family structure. Okay, grape robbery and murder, colonization. Exploitation of people, exploitation of controlling resources in different regions that he invades in. See that? Everywhere Esau goes throughout the earth, death follows. And it says, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Esau wants to have total control over all humanity. See? And nowadays, Esau aims to achieve that goal, okay, total control over all humanity through the NWO system via the implementation of the microchip, okay? That microchip, that charagma, the MOTB. That's how Esau ultimately wants to gain all humanity under his control. Okay, heap all nations unto himself. All right, And it says, verse 6, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. Okay, and that's what these heathen nations are doing throughout the earth. Okay, as they see Esau Edom losing his mind, especially here in the West, America, along with his European allies, as well as those small tops over there in the land of Israel. Okay, as this world sees Esau losing his mind more and more each day, all these nations throughout the earth are taking up a parable against Esau. Okay, basically cursing Esau out. The Hamites, okay, Ishmael especially, all right, Moab, Ammon, all right, Elam, cursing Esau out, saying what? Woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. Woe unto Esau Edom that's done nothing but great rob, murder, okay, colonize, imperialize all throughout the four corners of the earth. Okay, all to forward his Edomite supremacy throughout the earth, and ultimately to forward Satanism throughout the earth. You see that? And it says, and to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. See that? And as we always bring out this term, thick clay. Thick clay, Strong's H5671. Ibatyat, and it means weight of pledges, heavy debts. See that? Heavy debts. Okay. So America being in, trillions and trillions of dollars of Slovakia. America, Babylon the Great, being in trillions and trillions of dollars of debt is Bible prophecy. Okay, thick clay. And this would be another aspect of, again, showing how America, Babylon the Great is through. Okay, its own life support. And when you think of a patient in a hospital that's on life support, that's basically what? A patient in the hospital that's pretty much on his deathbed. Okay, getting ready to go back to the spirit world. All right, and even as this guy George Carlin, all right, George Carlin, famous comedian from years ago. He did this particular stand-up that you could look up on YouTube to this very day. It's very, very easy to find, where he said, America is circling the drain. All right, America is circling the drain. And the term circling the drain is a medical term, basically meaning what? That a particular patient that's in the hospital is getting ready to, pretty much go back to the spirit world. Getting ready to die out. And that's what, and that's a true statement. Because America, Babylon the Great is indeed circling the drain. Okay, and and especially from 2020 up until now, 2025, America has been circling that drain faster and faster. Just like when you watch water in a sink, go down into the drain, right? You notice as it gets further and further down that drain, as it's circling, the further and further down it gets, the faster and faster it drains. You see that? Well, that's what's going on here in America. This place is draining faster and faster. It's divided up at an all-time high. It's in debt. Okay. Then not to mention you got the whole, migrant crisis all across the country. Okay. The economy is all jacked up. The education system is all jacked up. The military is even all divided up and jacked up. Okay. Families especially all messed up. The relationship between men and women. The relationship between men and women all throughout history was always the foundation of, civilization. Family. Okay, the man being in his order, the woman being in her order, doing her role, the children being in their order within the household. But the fact that all these things are all just completely out of whack, especially here in the West, America, along with this, European allies that make up this whole entire beast system, the fact that these things are all out of whack is just another, another example showing you that this place is circling the drain, his own life support. Okay, and it says, and Lady Liberty herself, head in hand, watching the American eagle fade. Okay, and we know the eagle is tied to Esau Edom in the scriptures. All right. Obadiah. Obadiah. All right. As you, as you see at the top, Edom will be humbled. Okay. Obadiah. And I'll just go straight to verse 3. It says, "The pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground?" Showing you the pride of Esau, Edom. Even these lower level everyday Edomites, although they're through, okay, all over TikTok and all over social media, complaining about the cost of living, and complaining about how they're having to live paycheck to paycheck, and they're struggling in their own kingdom. But yet and still, the average everyday Edomite is still going to find a way to be proud in Babylon the Great. Okay, just look at how these Edomites are still scoffing at the northern tribes being arrested and deported by these ICE agents. When you read throughout the comment boards to those type of videos, all you see is Edomites on there. This is what I voted for. I voted for this. Just speaking proudly against Jake. Okay, looking at the hell that these ICE agents and these police officers are putting on Jake to feel better about their low level Edomite asses. Okay, trying to find some relief from the hell that they see their president, their beloved president and Lord and Savior Trump, is putting on them. Okay, but as I said, verse 4, Obadiah verse 4, "Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle," you see that? Though you exalt yourself as the eagle, speaking about Esau, Edom. Esau, Edom is spiritually and symbolically tied to the eagle according to the scriptures. It says, "Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord." You see that? And the Lord is bringing Esau down. First and foremost, by the spirit of this word going out, by the mouth of the prophets. Esau is being cast down. Okay, the terrible one is being brought to naught, as I went into in my camp speaking last Saturday. All right, Esau, Edom, the accuser of our brethren, is being cast down more and more each day, just simply by this word going out, and it's all going to lead to, all right, the Most High physically bringing Esau down, okay, through his right hand, Yahweh Shai, with the brightness of his coming. Okay, so as I said again back in this article, it says, "More guns than people, a political system stuck in an endless boxing match, a $30 trillion national debt chaining the country to the hospital bed, and Lady Liberty herself, head in hand, watching the American eagle fade." Watching this whole entire Edomite system fade away. Okay, like the scripture speaks about, the fashion of this world fadeth away. Well, hey, the fashion of this world is what? Esau's fashion, as it says in 2 Ezra 6 and 9. Esau's the end of the world. Okay, so the fashion of Esau's world is fading away. Okay, for the fashion of Jacob's world, okay, the kingdom of heaven, Yahweh Shai, the tabernacle of David, to be implemented in the earth after the Lord destroys this place. Okay, it says this is the state of America in 2025, armed, divided, broke, and exhausted. Okay, just all out through. And these are just a handful of terms to perfectly describe Babylon the Great, America in 2025. All right, and even as the scripture speaks about in Isaiah 24. Isaiah 24 and verse 4, it says, "The earth mourneth and fadeth away, the world languisheth and fadeth away, the haughty people of the earth do languish." And ultimately, under this rulership of Esau, Edom, throughout the four corners of the earth, everything is mourning. The earth itself is mourning, the animals are mourning. Okay, the birds, bees are dying. Okay, that's why it even speaks of in Romans 8th chapter. It speaks about how the whole creation groaneth to this day. basically for the sons of God to be made manifest, for the true righteous rulers to be made manifest in the earth, Yahushua in the tabernacle of David, okay, the elect of the nation of Israel. See that? So under Esau's rulership, Esau's worldwide rulership in his outer days over the four corners of the earth, all right, the whole entire earth is mourning and fading away, and this world is languishing, okay? And as it said, the haughty people of the earth do languish, all right? And this word languish, so Strong's H535 says amal, and it means to be weak, to droop, to languish, to be exhausted. See that? And wasn't that one of the words that it said here in this article? It says again, this is the state of America in 2025, armed, divided, broke, and exhausted. You see that? Languishing, okay? And as we've been going into in this lesson, all these things that I just mentioned, armed, divided, broken, exhausted, all these things are a part of Bible prophecy. Okay, prophecy of, end time prophecy, and especially prophecy here concerning Babylon the Great, America. All right. So this word language from Isaiah 24 again is Strong's H534, amal, and it means to be droop, to be weak, to droop, to languish, be exhausted. All right. Then under definition B, it goes in to be or grow feeble, which feeble in the scriptures means weak. Okay. Matter of fact, even in the Strong's definition right here, it says to droop, by implication, to be sick. Okay, to be sick, to mourn. And as we look at this picture right here, you notice down at the bottom, it shows the eagle, in a hospital bed, chained to $300 trillion of debt, and when you're in a hospital bed, that means what? You're in there because you're sick. You need some type of medical care, Hey, and we're literally reading right here in prophecy, okay? The haughty people of the earth do languish, okay? And the most haughty, what does the word haughty mean? Okay, haughty, Strong's H4791 says marawam, and we know mar in the Hebrew means what? Bitter, okay? And that also speaks to America as what? The name America literally goes back to the Hebrew word mar, which means bitter, okay? This place, America, Babylon the Great, is a bitter place. It's a bitter experience, especially upon us Israelites, so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. But this word haughty again, Strong's H4791, marawam means height, elevation, elevated place. Then it also goes into proudly, okay, proudly, all right. So as it said again, Isaiah 24 verse 4, the earth mourneth and fadeth away, the world languisheth and fadeth away. The haughty people of the earth do languish. The most proud people on the earth do languish. And that's who? The people here, especially in Babylon the Great, America. Okay? The most proud, most luxurious, so-called luxurious country throughout the earth. Okay, the most so-called comfortable country in the earth. Okay, the most careless country of people in the earth. You see that? We're in a time where all the pride of Babylon the Great, America, the haughtiness, okay, the wantonness, the impiety against Yahweh Shemashah, okay, all these things are backfiring against these people now. That's why it even speaks about in Second Esdras 8 in verse 50. Second Esdras 8 verse 50. It says, for many great miseries shall be done to them that in the latter time, okay, which is the time that we're in right now, that in the latter time shall dwell in the world. because they have walked in great pride. See that? Great pride, great haughtiness. Okay? Many great miseries, the Lord said, will be done to the people here in the earth in these latter days because of great pride. And especially, the Lord would bring great miseries, especially to the people here in Babylon the Great, America. And that's why, again, you go on social media, you go on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube or any of these other social media platforms. All right, and all you see is videos of people, getting online, complaining about the cost of living, complaining about the cost of rent and housing and food and gas and and just basic daily essential needs. All right, people are in debt, struggling. People are losing jobs left and right. Okay, Edomites especially, and the halted people of the earth, especially here in Babylon the Great, are languishing, weak, exhausted, through. All right, just like that. Just like this eagle that we see here in this picture right here on this article. Okay, sick. All right, in debt, circling the drain, on his way out. All right, because of that pride and all that rebellion. Okay. So back in this article, it says, the message is clear. America is sick, and denial will not cure it. Right, see that? Because these people here in America, Babylon the Great, they tried to deny, the harsh reality of where this country is in 2025. All right, but that denial is only going to last, so much more longer eventually before these people, all right, these average dumbed down Americans finally actually wake up to how bad things are in this country. All right. And you best believe, when these people finally really and truly wake up and realize how bad things are and how much their government really don't give a damn about them, people are going to snap. Okay, people are going to snap. They're going to take it to the streets, and they're going to fulfill, what we read in 2nd Ezra, the 15th chapter earlier. Okay, they're not going to regard their kings nor princes. It's going to be sedition. All right, there's going to be civil war and civil unrest all throughout the streets of Babylon the Great. Okay, and especially because of over lack of bread and tribulation, famine, okay, perplexity. All right, so these people won't be able to deny the harsh reality of what's going on much longer, because soon reality is going to hit these people, these ignorant, uninformed people here in Babylon the Great, America, in the face harshly. All right, and it says the only question is this: will America answer before it's too late? All right, and the answer is no. All right, because as it speaks of in Jeremiah 51 in verse 8, it says, Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her, take balm for her, if so be she may be healed. Verse 9, we would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. You see that? This place is not healed, nor can it ever be. All right? Forsake her, and let us go every one into his own country, for her judgment reaches unto heaven and is lifted up to the skies. Okay? And that's what's going on in Babylon the Great, America, and especially after 2025. This place is fallen. It's destroyed spiritually, financially, socially, family-wise, education-wise. All right, and there's no balm that you can take up for the pain of this place. All right, nor can this place be healed. See that? Because what? The judgment of this place, Babylon the Great, has reached unto the heavens. All right, has reached unto Yahweh Shema Shai, the Lord of Sabaoth. Okay, and all these things is all leading to the Lord. Okay, eventually, making this place totally desolate by way of fire. Okay, nuclear fire, as well as the fire from the chariots of Yahushua and the holy angels. Okay, and let's look up this word fallen. Jeremiah 51 and verse 8. Babylon is suddenly fallen. All right, this word fallen, so Strong's H5307, Nepal, and it means to fall, lie, be cast down. Okay, fail. All right, to fail. Babylon the Great is failing, is falling, is cast down. All right, is sitting in the dust, as it speaks of in Isaiah 47. Sit thou in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. All right, which is another code name for America in Bible prophecy. The virgin daughter of Babylon. All right. Even says down here, says Slakia, says to settle, waste away. Okay, and that's literally what the name Esau goes into. Wasted away. Ishashwa. Okay, so Esau is being wasted away, just as America. And as well vice versa. Okay, because America, Babylon the Great, is being ran by the biblical Edomites. All right. So America being wasted away and falling is all symbolic of Esau, Edom's rulership and dominance being wasted away and fallen and cast down. And it says be offered, and then it says be inferior to. Okay, and Babylon the Great is being made more and more inferior throughout the earth in these latter days, as the weak is saying that they're strong. You have all these countries, okay, ramping up their military power and cursing out Babylon the Great, cursing out Esau, taking up a parable against this place. All right, and even America's European allies are turning a side eye against America. Turkey, okay, France. All right, when it's all said and done, okay, it's all going to lead to the Lord making this place physically fallen, okay, and physically destroyed, all right, by way of fire, and this place cannot be healed. All right. So yeah, so America, Babylon the Great, is on life support. It's circling the drain, it's fallen, it's languishing. Okay. There's no balm or anything that you could that anybody can do to heal this place and make it great again. All right, because Yahweh Shema Shah is getting ready to judge this place. All right, he's getting ready to judge the great whore and make her burnt and desolate. See that? And so with that, Lord willing, this video is edifying. And until next time, shalom.